So guys, we are now officially in September, which means that it's time for another dividend portfolio update. And I am so excited to get into this one with you guys because August, this last month, was another really solid month in the portfolio. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to show you everything like my best and worst performing stocks for the month, all of my recent moves in the portfolio, and we'll discuss what my upcoming plans are here in September. But before we get to that, guys, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment below and let me know what's been going on in your portfolio this last month. Were you up? Were you down? Did you hit any crazy milestones in your portfolio? I want to know all about it in the comments below. Anyway, getting into how my portfolio performed this last month over here on my dividend portfolio tracking spreadsheet, which you can start using for free. There is a link to download this spreadsheet in the description of the video. But here, guys, we're going to kick things off looking at my taxable brokerage account over on Charles Schwab. This is my main account, and as we can see, it's currently valued at $66,917. And jumping over looking at the dividend income breakdown, at this point in time, guys, we are currently rocking a projected annual income of $2,590, which breaks down to almost $216 every single month. On a weekly basis, we are less than 20 cents away from averaging $50, and every single day we're sitting at $7.10. But going back to the account's current value for a second, this means, guys, that we are up a few $1,000s just in the last 30 days, and this is the second month in a row where that's been the case. And if we look at the breakdown for the month over here on Snowball Analytics, which outside of my free spreadsheet, guys, is hands down my favorite portfolio tracker, Snowball Analytics is an absolute beast. And if you're looking for something that has more bells and whistles, more charts and graphs, overall more functionality than your standard spreadsheet, then look no further than Snowball Analytics. And if you want to try it out and use it for yourself, you can actually do so for free. In the description, there is a link to try out Snowball Analytics with a 14-day free trial. So I highly recommend you guys hop on that. If you do, you will not be disappointed. Like I said, this one's a beast. You guys are really gonna like it. But anyway, going back over here, we can see that my rate of return for the month of August was about 3.8%, which is not as high as the gain from July. In July, I was up over 6%, but still a near 4% gain in the last 30 days. We'll take it. And this amounts to about a $2,443 gain if we're being exact, with about $2,200 of that coming from share price appreciation and the remaining $227 coming from dividend income. And if we look at the breakdown of all of my dividend payments, some of my highest ones from this last month came from Starbucks, who paid me $44.50 right at the end of August. And I also got another killer payment from Enterprise Products Partners about midway through the month for almost $60. And there were a few other pretty respectable payments in here, but in total, guys, $227 for the month. And I would say that this amount here, somewhere between around $210 to probably $230 is now kind of the normal range for me in terms of monthly dividend income, which is crazy to say. I really haven't been doing this for all too long. I've only been investing consistently now for the last 4.5 years. And I think the fact that I'm already at this point really speaks to the power of just being consistent, because that's really all it takes, guys. So just keep at it. But anyway, now looking at my portfolio's returns compared to the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and SCHD, I actually outperformed all three of these in the month of August. I ended up outperforming the S&P by about 1%. I ended up beating the NASDAQ by about 1.2%, and ended up beating SCHD by almost 1.5%. But with that, if we zoom out looking at the year-to-date performance, I'm still trailing the S&P and the NASDAQ. The S&P is beating me by almost 4%. The NASDAQ's beating me by about 1.3%, but I am still outperforming SCHD to the tune of about 2%. And then zooming out once more across the last 365 days, I'm still underperforming the S&P and the NASDAQ, both by about 3%. Really nothing too crazy. I'm hanging in there for the most part, and I am outperforming SCHD by quite a bit, by almost 5% in the last year. So overall, guys, another really solid month. And I had a couple of stocks that actually saw some really strong performance in the last month, which is what we're going to look at next. So starting here with my best performing stocks, guys, Starbucks hands down had the biggest gain across my entire portfolio this last month. If we look at the performance over here on Snapstock, we can see that in the last 30 days, Starbucks saw a gain of 25.6%, which is just mind-blowing. And most of you are probably already aware of this news, but this big gain for Starbucks came after announcing their big CEO swap. And the new CEO, Brian Niccol, will officially be starting in his new role this month. So let's see how that goes. But anyway, guys, my second best performing stock, believe it or not, was Altria Group, who in the last month was up a whopping 8%, so another really solid gain. And along with this impressive share price performance, Altria also announced their 59th dividend increase in the past 55 years for 4.1%, a nice little raise there. But guys, this company overall has just been crushing it. Now moving on to my third best performing stock, this was none other than Realty Income, who is officially above $60 per share now. And that happened pretty quick, guys. In the last month, Realty Income was up 7.8%. And if we zoom out looking at the year-to-date performance, it's up 10.2%. So all three of those companies did really well for me this last month. And now, on the other hand, in terms of poor performing stocks, hands down, my worst performing stock was Williams-Sonoma. And this is the worst performance we've seen from this company for quite a while. They saw an 8.6% decline in the last 30 days, which came after reporting a revenue miss in their recent quarterly earnings, while at the same time, they reduced their full year revenue guidance. So Williams-Sonoma is anticipating some potentially rough times ahead, which obviously is going to have a negative impact here on the share price. But still, guys, if we zoom out looking at the year-to-date performance, Williams-Sonoma is still up about 40% here in 2024, although it has been a bit choppy since April. It's definitely had its ups and downs, but overall certainly more ups than downs. And if we zoom out once more looking at the last 365 days, Williams-Sonoma is still up about 90%. But then guys, aside from Williams-Sonoma, the only other stock that saw any real poor performance was Chevron, who was down 5.1% in the last 30 days. And if we zoom out looking at the year-to-date performance, this is just barely going to put them in the red. They're down, 0.8%. But nonetheless, guys, despite these couple of things, the portfolio still persevered. And overall, we ended up pulling out another really solid month, so no complaints on my end. All right, guys, now getting into all of my buys for the month, it was a very simple, very straightforward month of buying for me. The only individual company that I added to in August was actually Visa, and throughout the month, I ended up adding 3.34 shares to my position, and I picked up these shares at an average cost of $264.96. So like I said, very simple. Then my only other purchases for the month were in the Roth IRA, my usual dollar cost averaging into SCHD in VU, and with SCHD, I picked up about 4.25 shares at an average cost of $81.46. And if we look at my position, I'm now sitting close to 89 shares of SCHD. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that we're going to hit those 100 shares by the end of the year. I think we're actually on track to probably be at maybe even like 110 shares of SCHD. We'll see how it all shakes out, but we're hitting that 100, no doubt about it. And then real quick, just looking at this VU pickup in the last month, I only bought 0.36 shares, and my average cost for these 0.36 shares was $491.32. So like I said, guys, overall, very simple month of buying. And the reason for that, truth be told, is I just don't see anything super duper interesting in my portfolio right now. I'm kind of just looking around, and there's not too many different positions that I'd want to buy. Visa was one of them. I mean, obviously I ended up putting everything into that, but another one that I'm kind of chewing on is Chevron. So we'll see if I end up picking up some more shares here in September. And now, guys, jumping over to M1 Finance real quick and taking a look at my Margarita Money account. This is my Roth IRA, and as we can see, it is valued at $12,470.94. We saw a pretty sweet climb in the last month. It looks like at the end of July, this portfolio was valued at about $11,600, so a nice gain in the last month, and it looks like we saw a near 3% rate of return. With that, if we zoom out looking at the year-to-date performance, it's even better. This account is up 16.3%, and we started the year at about $6,600. So we've almost doubled this account so far here in 2024. But with that, guys, if we combine both of my accounts, my main taxable brokerage account, which is valued at $66,917, and add in my Roth IRA here, which is valued at $12,470, this is going to bring my combined portfolio value to a total of $79,387. And every single year, this portfolio is bringing in $2,904 of dividend income. And if we compare this to my projected annual income from this time last month, we've added about $51 to the projected annual income just in the last 30 days. And if I have a couple more months just like this one, then by the end of 2024, I will definitely be at over $3,000 of projected annual dividend income in the portfolio, which is going to be awesome. That's been my goal here in 2024 is to reach that point. But I think, guys, we're actually on track to do that and then some. Like, it's possible. We'll see how things go, but it's possible that by the end of the year, I could be at even $3,100 of projected annual income. But anyway, looking at the income gained so far year to date, I started out 2024 bringing in $2,473 of projected income. And so we've added $431 to that so far this year. Now guys, as far as my watch list goes, I made no changes to this list in the last month. Still the same 13 stocks here as from the previous month. And it looks like a few of these saw some really strong performance in the last 30 days. Republic Services Group climbed 8.24%. I wish it would have done the opposite. I mean, it's at its 52-week high now. Same thing with PKG, Packaging Corporation of America. This was up 6% in the last month. LVMUY was up almost 6%, but still, even despite this gain, it's not too far off there from its 52-week low. And Cintas also saw a nice gain, up 5%, and they're also at their 52-week high. But then on the other hand, guys, we saw a couple companies pull back a little bit in share price. Like Casey General Store was down 6.5%, still on the pricier side, so I wouldn't be upset to see that keep going. Old Dominion was down about 6%, about midway there in its 52-week range. Same thing with Pool Corporation, who was also down 5.6%. And then Air Lease Corporation also saw a pretty big drop. They were down 5% in the last month. So I'd like to see all of these keep going, but it is good to see them pull back a little bit and getting at least a little bit closer to being down into buying range. And speaking of being in buying range, that's exactly what these three stocks are that I'm telling you about in this next video right over here. All of these stocks are looking deeply discounted, and they all look like great pickups right now as we head into September. So click right over here to check them out, and I'll see you in the next one.